Hey, everybody. Welcome to Truth Talks TV. I am extremely excited because we have a panel of some amazing women that we are so extremely excited to introduce to you.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
ladies,
Yes.
let us know who you are.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, everybody. This is Kendella Neese. I go by the name of the Remix Coach. I'm so honored to be a part of this panel. When we heal ourselves, we heal our communities, and when we have open dialogue and conversations like this freely, that's how we heal others because we never know who's going to be watching this. It's so important to talk about mental health, but not just mental illness, but mental wellness and emotional wellness is such an amazing show. And when Kiki said doing this, I was like, definitely, because
Yes.
this is about healing us, healing everybody. But of course, I have a passion for the Black community, and I think it's so important to have open discussions like honor to be amongst these amazing women. And you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you
You're
so
very
much for
welcome.
joining. It's an honor
Yes.
and surely a pleasure.
Yes. Next, we have Dr. Anna.
Thank you for having me here on Truth Talks TV. I am a therapist and I work with a wide variety of mental issues that are affecting our community. I deal with our young people as well as the elder ones. Again, I think this is a topic that needs to be discussed over and over and over again. We see a lot of suicides that's happening. We see a lot of behaviors that's occurring in the school due to the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. And it's just something that parents need to talk to their kids about. We should talk to our neighbors about. The church
Oh,
should be
yeah.
talking. This is something that should be discussed and not kept quiet. So thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks
Thank
for
you very
joining us.
much.
Last but certainly not least, we have, I want to call her something else, but I'll just say what I see. She know what I mean.
Say what you see.
We have
Say what
Sharon
you see.
Lawrence.
Thank you so much, Kiki and Nicole, for having me on Truth Talks as well. I am Sharon J. Lawrence. I am the therapist for therapists and also known as the
Oh,
self-carepreneur.
I
I
love it.
provide therapy to other therapists, professionals, and couples. And I focus on caregivers as well, making sure that they understand that they are not exempt from life and that
Mhm.
stuff happens and we have to take care of ourselves the same way that we're caring for others. So I'm
Mm.
excited to be here to talk a little bit more about how you self prioritize and you make sure that you
Mm.
understand that stuff comes at you like anyone else. And so it's about taking care of yourself and not feeling guilty about it. I am the
Mhm.
owner of Stela Wellness and Therapeutic Services, a virtual practice based out of Maryland and Florida.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh,
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Yes.
You
We got some
ladies have.
heavy hitters here.
Yes, we do. I tell
Man.
you, it's an honor to be able to chat with you ladies today.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Whew.
so last season, we had a lot of requests about expounding more and doing more episodes on mental health. So we were brainstorming on how we can do it and who we can include, like different people, different age groups, different backgrounds. And
Yeah.
so here we are. So we're talking about mental health, understanding mental health. And if we
Yes.
can start with Miss Sharon, how would you explain mental health to someone?
I always tell people that mental health, everyone has mental health, but not everyone has a mental illness. And I think a lot of
Mm.
times when people are referring to mental health, they clump it all together with mental illness. It's just like we all have physical health, but not everyone has a physical illness.
Mhm.
We all know from our experts on the panel with me, we know 1 in 5 people, according to NAMI, have a mental health diagnosis. But when you talk about mental health, it's about the wellness, the overall wellness of your mind, your body, your soul. But mental illness is referring to those things that disrupt life, if you will, your ability to function fully in different areas. And that can be anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, it could be an adjustment to grief, and having a major loss in your life. So it shows up in a different way where you're not
Mhm.
able to fully function, and if we could say that in layman's terms,
And
to help people understand.
Yeah. Wow. I like that distinction that you made, mental health versus mental illness. And I think sometimes when people hear the terminology mental health, they freeze up like, oh, nothing's wrong with me. You
Yes.
know, and it's like, well, we're
Defense.
not saying something's wrong with you. We're just saying that mental health is real and applicable to everyone. You know,
Yes.
so thank you for breaking that down. Dr. Anna, or Miss Kendall Lenise, anything and you want to add to that or anything from your personal experience that you'd like to add to that point as well?
Well, I also think in mental health is how we think, how we
Mhm.
feel, how we act. Is the overall picture of our well-being. And a lot of times people don't associate mental well-being with everything. It's the physical, the spiritual, the natural, all that comes into place, and it all impacts us at different points in our life. And sometimes there are highs and sometimes there are lows, but it's
Mhm.
how we move forward that really counts.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. Thank
right.
you.
And a lot of people don't understand, and I love that distinction, because people do, when you think about mental health and emotional health and well-being, it is about how you feel, how you act, how you respond. Oftentimes people want to shy away from it because they think you're saying that they may have a mental illness or a
Right.
deficiency in some area.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that because I do think that that's a very valid point as it relates to, the distinction and having these open, honest
Yes.
conversations. I think that's very important. And I appreciate you for being so candid, all of you ladies, for sharing this because it is about the whole being. It is about health in general. And an important thing to notice or distinct an important distinction to make rather is that
Mhm.
it's interconnected. We cannot
Yes.
just separate one from the other.
Right.
We
Right.
are a whole being.
Uh,
We may or may not be healed or completely whole in the sense, but as a whole person, we have different entities and aspects of who we
Yes.
are. And we can't just say, and I'll even be honest to say when I go to the gym, oh, I just want to make my stomach flatter. Well, it kind of
yeah,
doesn't work that way. You kind of
Right.
gotta, your
Right.
arms,
right,
your face, your legs,
Mhm.
right,
we're one body. Cardio affects the whole body.
yeah,
So,
Yes.
right.
even with mental
And you
health
can't go to
and
the doctor, like you can't go to the doctor and say, you know what, I'm worried about, let me go to the doctor, my annual appointment or my monthly appointments. And then you forget about the medical, you forget about the inside. But
that's right.
people always, I go to the doctor all the time. I go get my physicals for the essence of who you are.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
I definitely think that's important. I think that's very important to make sure that we focus on the entire being,
Yes.
and not to negate some of the other points or factors that we think of or may think of as less important. I know we make the joke like when you want to get married, you run to the pastor, you run to the church, and then when you want to get a divorce, you run to the courthouse. It's like, well,
Right.
wait a second. We can't just pull on one thing for this reason and pull go in
Mhm,
another direction we have to be conscious of us being one complete whole body, interconnected,
mhm.
different things that really make up the essence of who God created us to be. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thank
Mhm.
you for even starting us off in this brilliant or wonderful conversation, Dr. Sharon, as it relates to the difference between mental health and mental illness. Now, I wanted to touch on, I know we wanted to touch on some of the common illnesses that we see,
Mhm. Mhm.
depression,
Mhm.
I mean, one major one, suicide,
Yeah.
anxiety,
Yeah.
those
Bipolar.
bipolar. I feel,
Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like
Mhm.
those are
Mhm.
very prominent. And and one thing that I've noticed, even as a special educator in the classroom, they'll say, "Oh, this kid is bad. She must have
Mhm.
this, or she must
Right.
have."
Right.
And
Putting
it's like, well,
labels.
why are we putting a label on
Yeah.
a child and you're calling
Mhm.
them bad, and it just may be
Mhm.
ADHD. They're
Yeah.
not bad
Mhm. And I work
because
in the
we,
school systems too. I work in the school
yeah.
system. I'm sorry to, I don't even want to cut you off, but
No, no
that
worries. It's
bothers
about
me.
you. Educate
Yeah,
us.
that
Yeah.
bothers me. I'm an educator in the school system as well, elementary school, and the labels. We have to stop that because the minute that someone has feel, and this happens in schools and outside of the schools, the minute someone has feelings and emotions, a range
Yeah.
of emotions are happy, sad, mad. We know the primary emotions and the secondary emotions,
Yes.
but this is the thing. When if someone is happy today
Mhm.
but sad tomorrow, it doesn't mean we have to stop saying people are bipolar or if people get frazzled. they're manic, or they're not.
Yeah.
These are the
Yeah.
labels that people put on people because you don't know the circumstances
Right.
behind someone's I don't even want to say behavior, but someone's mood. Someone could be happy, but then something could happen when a child or adult goes home and tomorrow they're sad. They're not bipolar or manic. People want to diagnose other people that don't even have a diagnosis. And I think we
That's
have
right.
calling people crazy or something.
Yeah.
That's what I want us to do as a community. Even like when you think about the movie Soul Food, or you think about a lot of Black folks' house with Uncle P. Remember, he was in the room.
Yes.
And back in the day, in my generation, I'm 50. So in my generation, people would say, oh, they're crazy, or they're touched, or something's wrong.
Yeah.
And they would ignore it and call it that, and not, I'm with the Yanla, call a thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you're
Call it what it
diagnosed,
is. Yeah.
right, if you're diagnosed. But if you're undiagnosed, or you don't even have that, find out what's wrong.
What it is.
Like someone could be not clinically depressed, but they could be sad because someone passed away, or they lost a job, or they had, with the traumas, the big T's and the little T's, something could be going on. So that's why it's so important to have discussions, especially with our children, because I see it all the time. And everyone has their cases when we're talking about kids, whether it's an IEP or a 504 plan for them, and it kind of outlines them. So then when the next person sees it, even if it hasn't been updated, or even if it's not all the way correct, then that's how that child is treated. So it's perpetuating the what's going on instead of healing the child. And I see that happen a lot in school.
And it's interesting that you say that. And I appreciate you for saying that, because I personally, and I know this is going a little off topic, but I personally have, I guess, a biased opinion as it relates to IEPs and just all of it. I mean, I remember working for, I think it was my first classroom, where they said, okay, Miss Queen, we're going to give you the classroom with the students that have, are diagnosed with autism. So, and I go in there and I'm thinking, oh, okay. And a lot of these children have different, or mixed illnesses, if you will. So they'll have this plus something else. And I think within a week they said, okay, you got to get ready for the IEP meeting. You got to do that. And I said, well, I don't even know this child. How am I supposed to update it? But because of the law, you've got to make sure you write it, make sure it's current. And I'm sitting there thinking, I had a 75-page IEP. I said, this is my first week here. Their
folders are
no clue.
Thick.
Oh, yes. They are extremely thick. But see, it started to get me thinking. I truly believe that there is no real cookie cutter method of teaching every child. So in my opinion, my humble opinion, I feel like every child, it needs an IEP, but not from the sense of what the government recognizes it, meaning as something's wrong with you, but more so from the standpoint of this is how you treat or teach this specific child. Not IEP with the stigma of something's wrong, but I'll even change the acronym IEP, individualized plan. So this is how this child best learns. This is their learning styles, their modalities. This is or they come from this situation, or they maybe a lot of my students were from group homes, and so we would do a check-in. How are you feeling today? If they're angry, okay, cool. I understand now how to. I may make you the line leader today, or just do some things to cheer you up, to kind of help you become more open to learning today, as opposed to fighting everything I say today. You'll call them a student. I don't want to answer. I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to. Well, in that moment, I need to give them a little more love. I couldn't really lay hands and pray over students in the classroom, but I can show the love of Jesus Christ in the classroom. So I feel like every student needs that opportunity to have an individualized opportunity, if you will, to learn. And so that teachers can say, this is how the student best receives. I know one of my students learned her name. She learned the alphabet. You saw.
Wow.
I mean, I couldn't sing everything, but we taught based upon that learning style. Another student, he was very kinesthetic. So he'd be jumping around doing jumping jacks, and the kids that do, I'm hitting stuff. The kids at the fiddle and the touching it, and the students and teachers would say, oh, they're being so bad. No, they're not. They're not.
The poppets help. That helps.
I give them things to squeeze. We have a sensory room. They could tap their feet. But they were focused. They were listening. And so the moment you say you're bad, you're being
Right.
disrespectful, now it's like you're giving them a label and they may eventually act out that
Right.
label.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that
And I,
wasn't,
Because if everyone's
yeah,
I
calling
have
me
a
that, well, let me
right.
just show out and be
Thank
that.
you.
Because
Yeah.
when
yeah,
I'm trying to be something different, you pull me back into that instead of,
yeah,
how about saying hello, good morning, how was your day?
yeah. How about
That
let me be a
totally
human?
changes the trajectory of that
Absolutely.
day. Hey, did you eat breakfast? Because it could be something as simple as they didn't eat breakfast. So
Definitely.
they're that way. Or, it could, so I totally agree with you. Totally.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I agree with that too. I actually recently had a conversation with a friend who's a teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
she said one of her students who does have an IEP lashed out that y'all think I'm stupid anyway. Basically, teachers
Oh,
think because some teachers label the students, or you have students
All
in a
the
classroom
time.
who are aware that a
yeah,
child has an IEP, which shouldn't be a thing either. Like, I know it is strange to have someone that accompanies you. I know some classrooms have a
yeah.
paraprofessional that's with the
Mm-hmm.
student, and it does look weird, but you got to find a better way where the student doesn't feel like targeted,
Yeah.
because
And they feel
they
shamed.
realize it, and I'm sure that
Yeah.
that affects them more and affects their mental health even more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's why they oftentimes don't disclose it or just say, oh, I'm just sleepy. I'd rather say I'm sleepy or sick than to say I can't read.
Right,
Mhm.
The
right,
dyslexia.
yes,
No one wants to admit that.
yes,
And that they
yes,
have
Or
to
they
deal with
or
this.
they'll act out in different ways. But
right,
the whole objective of the IEP is to allow each child that has a learning disability or
Yes.
learning needs assistance. It's for the teacher to
Yes.
give their child that assistance.
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
It got
Yes.
turned around because of the judgmental
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm,
decisions of the teachers in the school. But it's not the
Mm,
child
Mhm.
itself, but it's still
exactly.
it's the school system in terms of how they
Mhm.
look at that IEP
Mhm.
instead of it being a tool for that child to learn and to be able to move forward. Then they like you said, branded the child. So
Yes.
Mhm.
right,
the objective of it is supposed to be what is supposed to be good. How it got turned around again is the school system.
mm-hmm,
That's
Mhm.
right.
mm-hmm.
That's right. And so
So
Dr.
true.
Lawrence Dr. Lawrence, I know
Thank
no.
you. See,
You say
see,
no, I'm not a
see.
doctor.
Now that you said it,
I'm sorry. I'm
let
just saying what the Lord says.
see. Thank you,
I
Jesus
will not lose
Christ.
my license over
Thank you,
y'all.
Jesus.
No.
Thank you, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, because she know we be talking. But anyway,
Dr. Lawrence.
ask your question. Don't
No,
that
no,
just
no,
sound
no,
right?
call
It
me
just
Sharon.
sounds right.
It
Now,
sounds
when I
right.
finish my doctorate, you can call me that, but call me Sharon, or just call me Sharon. You're not gonna get me in
I'll
trouble.
text it to you. You're gonna get a random text message to say Dr. Lawrence, and I'm like, okay, bye.
But from
What you,
your
what you got for me?
well, from your perspective, I know you probably, and I love that you said you're a therapist.
Yes. Ain't that amazing?
That just that alone got me very excited because those are often a forgotten bunch of people.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think about the caretakers or the teachers it's like,
Yeah.
well, who's a teacher of the teacher, And one of my favorite preachers, Dr. Tony Evans, they say he's a preacher's preacher,
Mhm.
So it's kind of like I love to hear when people are saying, like, for those that are leading God's people or caring for others, let me care for you.
Yeah.
So I love that you said a therapist to the therapist, and also helping other couples. And so I'm pretty sure you get a very diverse group of people that come into your space. And so I know from my perspective as a special educator, there's been so much I could do because everything is done from the perspective of teaching the child. So certain conversations that I have with people are generally from the perspective of how does this affect their ability to learn? And I know from your perspective, it's okay, how do I affect your mind? How do I help you in your emotions? So there's a limit that I could even go as a teacher. We had social workers on staff, we had therapists there, but to a certain degree, I could advocate, but so far for the student because of my background and because of the limitation that was imposed upon me. So from your perspective, what would you say to a child who has been labeled or, and I know we're talking about women, but I feel like a lot of times the women that we see are still the little child on the inside that's still hurting.
Right. They
So
never got the attention that they needed.
absolutely. So what would you say to that branded person that has had a label all their life? You're this, you're that, you're this,
Right.
you're that, and trying to come to grips with their mental health. because I do believe that some mental illnesses weren't there initially, and that
Right.
certain situations were
Yep.
imposed upon them. And I know, well, not imposed, but they were influenced. I know with bipolar, I think it's bipolar 1 and 2, and then one could be, I think one's hereditary, and the other is, I want to say not circumstantial, but trauma induced, if I'm speaking correctly. So what would you say to those people who've been termed with these branded statements, if you will, that are trying to, I guess, escape that that pressure of just carrying something that they're like, I I don't feel loved, I feel judged already,
Okay.
you're supposed to be helping
Okay.
me, but
All right. So
yeah.
let me start with so the first thing is, when I'm working with my clients, I first want to know what happened to them. And I
Mm.
That's
think
good.
for many individuals, a lot of people, like I think Kendall was saying earlier, to sum it up, is that, people often looked at the behavior like, what's wrong with you? And so when individuals are coming in, I look at it from that adverse childhood experience, not just looking at, what's happening in the moment, but I want to know what happened to them. What was their upbringing like? I ask a lot of questions about their history, their relationships, because that's going to tie into what they're walking in the room with. What are they carrying with them at that moment? And so that be exploring and seeing what type of historian they are in terms of what they choose to share with me.
That's good.
And by finding out what has happened to them can speak volumes to how they see themselves or what may be going on physically. I'm a firm believer. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk talks about this a lot, where if you've gone through trauma, your body, if it hasn't been dealt with, if the trauma has not been dealt with, is going to manifest in the body. And
Yep.
so that's the adverse childhood experiences
Yeah.
component. If you just do a screening, every level, it goes up to 10, but every level can represent an element in your body. And so when you have people coming in,
Wow.
I want to know what happened. And my first question is also, when was your last physical? So I'm not just looking at what they think about the situation. I want to make sure that there's no other physical conditions that may be manifesting as well, so that we can look at things holistically. But I want them to also hear themselves telling that story for the first time. A lot of times
Yeah.
when they come in, that's their first time talking through it.
Yeah.
And when they start hearing stuff like, that's the first time I've said that, or this is the first time I felt safe sharing this information. And so being able to just start there, because you can't just say, hey, what do you think about this label? What label do you have for them? It's not so much the label, it's the pain
Yeah. That's good.
they're experiencing, and being able to tap into how we can start rewriting that narrative for them to start to
Like
heal
it.
and to move forward. And in some cases, they may have to accept what has happened in the past to be able to move forward. Like, what is the recommitment to themselves to move forward and heal? But it's a lot of work.
It
That's
is.
good.
Yeah. I appreciate you for sharing that.
Yes.
Wow. And like we said, I truly believe that conversations and topics such as these
Right.
definitely require consistency, awareness. And I know a lot of groups and community groups and different platforms intend on having this open dialogue so that we can continue. And so thank you everyone for joining, because we are going to continue this
Yes.
conversation. So I know that we've kind of tapped into some things,
Yes.
and we started to
yes.
talk
Had
about
a
what
nice
it's like to
introduction.
nice introduction about understanding mental health and branding, if you will, or labeling students or just individuals in general, and just that whole stigma attached to words, because I think
Yes.
that words
Yeah.
and, like you said, rewriting the narrative, that's powerful.
Yes, I like
So
that.
I
like
really
it.
do. I really like that, because what people say about you and their perception of you could just be literally their perception.
That's true.
And to
And how do
diagnose
you-
someone that's not diagnosed,
And that's a
that's
good
not-
thing. Yeah, that's a good thing to dig
Yeah.
into. So, Dr. Anna, how would you help rewrite a narrative of someone who comes to the office and has a low self-esteem, or just been through, you're trying to help them dig through their issues? How do you help them to rewrite their narrative without causing further offense?
Actually, the rewriting comes on their part.
That's
I
good.
basically talk, and they will or ask questions and get them to go back to when the depression started or when
Mhm.
they think it started. Sometimes I like to go back even farther than that to childhood age, to see if anything occurred back then, to get them to start to connect the dots for themselves. If they can find out what occurred back then or what is causing the depression now. A lot of times we hold things in our hearts that have happened to us a
Oh
long time
yes.
ago,
Oh
and we
yes.
don't let it out until we're 10, 15 years later.
Yes.
And by that time, it's devastated. We've got high blood
Mhm.
pressure. We've
Yeah.
got all kinds of things
Right.
that's
All
going on.
kinds.
And so
Whew.
if we try to get them to connect, well, okay, well, look, let's walk through this step by step and see what actually occurred. When did you actually start thinking that you were depressed? Does it connect it to something else? Is there a red flag? Is there a trigger which caused that? To get them to start thinking for
Mhm.
themselves. And once
Mhm.
we get that established, then we start thinking about, okay, so how do we respond to the depression? How
Mhm.
we come with a proactive approach to dealing with the depression or whatever
Yeah.
else may be manifesting, because one spirit don't travel by itself. I'm sorry.
Hey,
Right.
that's
Right.
right. That's
You
true.
bring
Right.
in
That's true
there's
now.
several spirits that come that attack and travel together. So
Mhm.
to get them to come up with a proactive strategy that they can do, not one that I set for them, because what I
Mhm.
set for
Right.
them they may not can do, but what they
Mhm.
can do themselves.
That's good.
That's
Ooh,
awesome. Awesome.
that is so good.
Whew.
I hate to stop you right there, but unfortunately, we are going to have to pick up and continue with our lovely guests on
Yes.
another. I guess we could just call it part 2
Right. Part
of
2.
our understanding
Mental health.
mental health and just learning how to cope and to deal. So
Yes.
thank you so much for joining us for Truth Talks TV. Make sure you stay tuned for next week when we come right back with our wonderful guest to continue to dig deeper into this very, I want to say, intense,
Yes, it
powerful
is.
topic.
Yes.
So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next week.